Okay, hello. Just getting a couple of things set up last minute. So, as you can see by the title on the stream, this is gonna be a shorter stream. I'm exhausted, but I have a couple things that I still need to do. So, we're gonna knock those out. If I feel up to it, I may do some sprints, on my personal project. If not, it just won't happen tonight. So, in any case, if you're new here, I'm Alex. I am a non-binary and autistic writer from the Pacific Northwest. I have a short story collection that was released at the end of May called When the Stars Were Brighter. I have a debut novel coming out October 10th called A Sharper, More Lasting Pain. And I just kind of write queer dark fantasy. It's kind of my niche. Tonight we're gonna be a couple streams ago, I was doing a project for one of my classes because I'm in school again. Excuse me. And there's a final project that I have to do basically where I took a bunch of notes on a subject. In this case, it was studying. So I looked at different note-taking methods and tried to figure out which one works best for me, and like exploring the pros and cons of them all. So now I have to present my findings basically, and so I'm using the stream to do it. Afterwards I'll take clippings of the presentation and make a video of it to post on the channel. So look out for that, I guess. And then I have to submit that and a reflection and all that. So we're gonna go ahead and get transitioned over. So we'll do the presentation. I guesstimate it'll be like 20 minutes, and then I'll do a sprint or two to work on In Time for the Wedding, which is my short story for a different class. It's a final, and I don't know if I'm gonna have the energy to. I will try to have the energy to. Once I finish that up, we may look at Across This Hollow Distance, but not gonna lie, I'm exhausted. It's been a long week, and I've just been kind of go for the last several weeks, and I'm just tired, and I really need a break, but I couldn't really take a break because, you know, I have shit to do, so I'm just gonna take a shorter stream and try and take care of myself, and then, I don't know, we'll see what things look like from there. So, this is my presentation called The Efficacy of Note-Taking. It is a slideshow, as you can see. So let's get into it. So, this is The Efficacy of Note-Taking, a study and comparison on note-taking methods, by me, obviously. There are multiple methods of note-taking that people may use when taking notes. I focused on 4 main ones, and I did a little bit of research on 2 additional ones that originally I was going to also try out, but I just kind of ran out of time, and one in particular, we'll talk about it when I get to that point, one in particular wasn't exactly right for the type of research that I was doing for this project, so I have information on it, but I didn't actually practice it during this. So, the 4 study methods that I focused on were the outline method, the Cornell method, the mind map method, and the chart method. And so, here's just a few quick bullet points on each. So for the outline method, that's the one that I do all the time. Essentially, you just kind of make bullet points of what you're studying as you're going through it. It's really great when information is in a hierarchical organization. So if you're in a lecture or whatnot, if you're on paper and say, you know, they bring up information for an earlier point, not as easy to organize it, but if you're on a laptop, it's fine. You have topics and subtopics and whatnot, and so because of that hierarchical organization, it makes it a bit easier to find certain things and to organize it. Number 2 is the Cornell method, and the Cornell method just kind of builds on the outline that you have. So essentially, you have your bullet points that you have made, but the page is split into 3 different sections, and so the main section is those notes you've taken. Off to the left is cues or the questions you have based on the notes that you've taken, and then you have a summary at the bottom. And we'll go over pictures of all of these, but um, it's good for expanding your thinking. It's good for finding new avenues of things to research. Like if you have one research in your, or one research, if you have one resource and you're taking notes on it, and you're like, I wonder why such and such is a thing. Well, then you can turn around and research from that vantage point and have more thorough additional notes. So, it's also good for making sure you understand what it is that you're studying and making sure that you're comprehending it. So that's good too. Mind maps I found were best when you're starting out with a topic, when you're trying to brainstorm different things. So, for example, what I ended up doing is when I was using all these different note methods, I was using it to study epistolary fiction for my Fiction 1 class. And so I made a mind map first, kind of like, okay, I know that these books are epistolary books, and I know that where's my brain? I know that epistolary tends to feature this, this, and this, and so it evolved a lot, and you can see it evolve in the stream where I was building it, but essentially I split it off into different sections, and they're all like super, super short points. This isn't, I think, good for taking notes when you begin to actually start researching something, but it is a good jumping off point, and it's good to kind of sort the particulars of things. So, and then number 4 is the chart method, which is, it's good, for example, if you're like working on a timeline, if you're trying to chart out, going back to the epistolary example, charting out different epistolary books and whatnot. And so again, we'll see examples of all these, but it's not really good for much else, and so I didn't get to use it too much, but I can show you what I did use it for. So then there were 2 additional methods. So there's the boxing method and the QEC method. So the boxing method is essentially, it's kind of like the Cornell method in that there's different boxes, but essentially what you do is each box that you have on your page is a main topic, and then it'll have smaller boxes inside each box for like a subtopic, and then all of your information goes in these subtopic boxes, and you're essentially categorizing all of your notes that you have taken into different things. And I originally tried to do this on my own, and my brain was just not connecting with it at all. So there are notes about it in my preliminary research on different note-taking methods, but I didn't end up actualizing them because it just wasn't clicking for me, and I just kind of ran out of time. QEC, on the other end, is question, evidence, conclusion. So essentially, it's good for literature, it's good for history, it's good for philosophy. So essentially what you're doing, you know, when you were in high school, middle school, elementary school, and you took a standardized test, especially the reading comprehension test, where it'd have you, like, read a thing, and then it would ask you questions about it, it would ask you, like, how you know those things. That's kind of what it is, where essentially you have questions that you're trying to answer, you use textual evidence to answer that question, and then you kind of draw your conclusions based on that. Because I was focusing more on, like, broader studies of epistolary and not on any actual books or anything like that, if I had focused on actual books, this method would have been really good for me. But I wasn't at that stage, and so I didn't really get to actualize it, but I do have some notes on it, so. And then we just have slides on each of the methods that I did do in particular. So this is excuse me. This is an example of the outline method. This is what I tend to do. So I have just a header here of what resource I'm taking notes on, and then I hyperlink to the source, obviously. And then I just kind of have a broader topic thing. So for example, how does correspondence function within a novel? And then the subpoints can be answers to that question, that bigger point. It can be like expanding on that point. Like can serve as communicative letters, narrative action without being a part of it. And then there's a subpoint of that subpoint that's an example of it, and then a subpoint of that subpoint of that subpoint that's an explanation of the previous subpoint. So things like that. So I don't want to say it's basic, but it works for me for the most part, and so I like it a lot. This is an example of the Cornell method, and so like I said, it's similar to the outline method in that the note-taking box is just the outline method, as you can see over here. So there's broader topics and then subpoints to each of them, etc. But then over here on the side, we have cues. So for example, I think I was you want to have them kind of around whatever point it is that the question pertains to. So in this case, I was talking about Dracula and how it uses different mediums like diary entries and newspaper headlines and whatnot to tell its story. And so the question I had once I got to the point was, how does each medium used further the plot? How does it add to the narrative in a way other mediums cannot? And so that would be a question that I might want to look deeper into as I expand my research. Or down here, because this specific video that I was watching was going over kind of the history of the epistolary and how it evolved. And so down here is when we start going into movies in the found film genre specifically. And so this isn't a question, more so just kind of a summation where it's transition from narration to film with introduction of found footage genre, which is right there with the Blair Witch Project. And then all the way down here, you summarize the notes that you've taken for whatever it is that you're studying. And so I summarized what it is that I took on this, and kind of my takeaways from it. This is the mind map method, and specifically this is the mind map that I made for epistolary. This is kind of how it ended up. This isn't how it initially looked. I'm sure in a second I'll splice in samples of how it looked while I was starting to build it. But this is how it ended. So I split it into 3 different main branches. So we have books, we have types, and we have structure. And so the books get split into further subgenres. So there's contemporary, there's horror, there's sci-fi, and there's fantasy. And then just examples of books in each genre that count as epistolary. So The Tiger's Daughter, Hyperion, The Martian, Wiki History, Dracula, House of Leaves, Train Man, Perks of Being a Wallflower, stuff like that. And then in the types branch, it's just the different types of epistolary that there are and a brief explanation of them. So we have forum posts, and the explanations are actually kind of like how they're structured. So the forum posts, for example, will have date and timestamps and usernames, and maybe a thread name too, or a subthread or whatnot. Diary entries are going to have the date, and potentially the time, depending on how it's recorded, if it's a audio log, for example, or a digital diary entry. Text messages rather will have names, usernames, and timestamps. Read receipts if you're fancy. You can use read receipts as a sort of narrative device in your epistolary book if you want to. There's police logs, newspapers too. A newspaper would have a headline, a byline, potential photography written in an article style. So it just kind of breaks down the different types, and this isn't all-encompassing, it's just what I had. But that breaks down the different types of epistolary and what can be expected out of those. The final branch in this mind map is the structure, and so just kind of breaking down different aspects of the structure of an epistolary book, and then additional questions I might ask. So structure, I have a sub-branch that says meta-narrative, for example. So I say the narrative around the narrative. What is the purpose? What's the overarching story? Things like that. So that's the mind map method, and like I said, this can be really good for when you're first starting out and you're starting to kind of conceptualize where you want to go with your research, how you want to take your notes, where you want to look for additional notes to take. And I did this did evolve with my notes, so just so I could have like something final to present. Definitely not something that I use a lot though. And then this is the chart method. So for example, I charted different books like we saw in the mind map here. I charted out different books. I charted out their genre. I charted out what type they are and the year that they were published. Hyperion, for example, is the oldest, having been wrote in 1792. It's a series of letters, and it's a sci-fi genre work. Or we have Parable of the Sower, which is told through diary entries. It's a sci-fi book wrote in 1993. We have House of Leaves, which is mixed narrative styles. So there's video transcriptions, there's research papers, and there's a lot of footnote discussions. So there's like discussions happening in the footnotes. And this was a work wrote in 2000, a horror book. Or Carrie, which is it's mostly narration, but there are reports included in the work. So it's a mixed epistolary kind of book wrote in 1974. Stuff like that. So this is good for highlighting like specific examples, or like if you're researching history and you want to have a timeline, it's good for to have a timeline for, and it gives you a more like physical representation of the data that you're noting. But other than that, it's not the same as other note-taking methods, and like what you can get out of those. And then we get to my thoughts. So kind of just recapping everything I just said. Like for example, mind maps are good for preliminary thoughts and niches of research, which is something I just went over. Cornell has its uses for expanding on existing notes, considering alternate routes of study. Charting is good for sorting particulars. Boxing is good for big ideas. So, like, if you're working on, I guess, a more complex subject that has a lot of different sub-thoughts and a lot of particulars to it, the boxing method could be good for that. I couldn't get my brain to work with it. I still mostly prefer the outline method. I think I may take the further effort to incorporate Cornell more. And it's really funny because when I went into this project, I absolutely hated the Cornell method. And I think it's because the way we were taught it in school. So when I was in middle school, high school, I can't remember what class it was, but there was some college prep class. I think it was called AVID. And typically AVID kids would stay in AVID from like 7th, 8th grade all the way up to graduation. And they were the proponents of the Cornell method, but some classes, especially AVID teachers, would force the rest of us to do Cornell method notes, but they didn't explain it well, I feel like, is why I hated it so bad, because when we actually look at it, it's not that much different than how I normally take notes. It's just adding things to it. So you're adding a section to ask questions to yourself, and you're adding a place for you to summarize it. And that's not how it was advertised to me when I was in school. So when I came into this experiment, I went, crap, I'm gonna hate this. And I actually didn't. And so that was an interesting thing to learn about myself. I still prefer the outline method more, just for quick like notation and means of recording data and information and whatnot. But given the time, or just kind of depending on the subject, I guess, I can see the value in the Cornell method now, and I do have a better appreciation for it. So that is one key takeaway I had from this, which I honestly wasn't expecting. Like I said, I thought I was going to keep hating it until the day I died. Mind maps, on the other hand, not a big fan. And let me close this out with my bibliography. And so when I did my first stream of note-taking, I had some videos I watched on methods of retention and whatnot. But since this is focused on mainly the different types of notes, that's just what the bibliography is centered on. So yeah. And then I also found, just because I wasn't able to get more into the QEC method, or the question, evidence, conclusion method, there is a whole resource for it down here. So, and with that is the end of the slideshow. So, oh, go ahead and close this and close. Oh, shit, fuck. Oh no, that's actually fine. So now I had an idea for how to finish out this short, and it's funny because I knew how I wanted to end the short, but I still wasn't like, how do I put this? I didn't have a full plot in mind for like exactly how I wanted to end it. A couple days ago, I got pulled over, and so I think that's kind of how I want. I think that's kind of how I want to end this short, is by Charlie and their grandfather getting pulled over. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start a sprint for 10 minutes. Oh, it starts in no time at all. Crap. Need to reset timer. Turn on, transition, sick. I'm gonna turn myself off and do the things. Okay. So that is the first sprint. As you can see, I got most of it done. So now I'm just getting to the part where they get pulled over, so. Yeah, we'll do another 10-minute one. I think I can finish it in that time. And then we will see. So maybe another one started. We'll do another 10 at 45. So in 4 minutes-ish. Excuse me. Like I said, I'm fucking exhausted. So I probably... I don't even know what I was saying. I'm fucking exhausted, to be honest. So I think, like I said, it's gonna be a short stream. I think I'm just gonna finish up with the sprints to get this done, and then I'm gonna call it for the night because I'm beat. My brain is not processing anything, and I just need to lay in bed and decompose for a while. I don't think I'll get to stream tomorrow. I think the next time I may get to stream is Wednesday. But my husband may be losing his night shift job, so I don't know yet. So we're kind of playing it by ear right now. That's what we're doing, is playing by ear. I may shift to start doing them in the afternoons after I get off work and just accept that they're going to be shorter ones. I don't know yet, so. Oh, it's fucking nice. Got a can of Arizona I was polishing off, but I have a fan on my nightstand, and so I finished it off, and the can got too light, and the fan blew it off the nightstand. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm such a mess. Like I said, I'm fucking tired. So. At the very least, I'm about to do something, because I'm supposed to read this out loud, too. Again. And I'm nervous about it. I don't like reading things out loud. I've been getting better at it lately, which is good, but I don't like it still. But, anyway. We haven't met a minute, so I'm gonna reset things and do all the usual shit, so. Sick. So that's another down. Oh, I'm really close to the end. I think I'll just finish this up without a sprint attached to it. Just because I want to try and finish this before I get off the stream, and then I can edit it on my own time. So essentially, they're still talking to the officer right now. She's tripping over the fact that they're non-binary. And, this also happened when I was pulled over the other day. The cop was like, you know, you were going, what did he say? I think he said I was going 77, and I was going 73. Which, yeah, big difference normally, but he made a point to be like, you know, if you were already going like 17 over, if you were going 20 over, it'd be reckless driving ticket. I was like, well, I wasn't going 20 over because I'm very careful about that. And I didn't say any of this, but I was like, I wasn't going 20 over, or anywhere close to it, but I didn't say anything because speeding is speeding, and I was speeding, so I was like, duly noted, won't happen again. But I decided to incorporate that element in this scene as well. But, I feel that, like, because it's not a sprint, I'm trying to, like, talk while I'm doing this. There's just so much to say, I'm just trying to wrap this up in the next few, like, lines, I guess. Um,
I was trying to remember for a second. 'Cause I feel like there's a word. It's like patrol car or whatever. But I thought there was like a word, like ambulance or I guess fire truck is it two words? Anyway, for a police car. Cruiser. That's the word that I'm trying to think of. I don't know if she means. Yeah, fuck it. I really like the description, like ink on water, or like the simile, like ink on water, a lot. I've used it a few times. I am fully cognizant of that, but I just feel like it's a good line. It's a good description. I like it, and I probably won't change it anytime soon. There's some one thing that bothers me about my writing in general is there's always so much looking and gazing and whatnot, which is like it's hard because that's the everybody uses sight, and that's just the sense that I tend to default to first when I think of describing things or actions or whatnot. It's just like, what does the character see? And
And so I'm always like having them meet looks or exchange glances or whatnot. Um, and I do try and cut back on it because it is like a crutch descriptor thing. But man, is it hard. What am I trying to say? It's like they're not prepared for it. So I'm almost like so unprepared. Yeah, I guess that is unprepared. One thing I've been like wavering on in this short is like I kept flipping between wanting to refer to him as their grandpa, just purely their grandpa, or like actually naming him. And at the end of the short, I'm like heading towards naming him more, like name dropping him more. But I don't know, because it's like my thing with my third person is it tends to be third person, like heavily, not just what is it called, close third person, where it's like essentially it's kind of like first, but it's using third person pronouns and etc. And also so like I can get a bit of distance when I need to. Um, and so my justification for just calling him their grandfather is just like because I'm writing with that closeness in mind, like obviously Charlie wouldn't call their grandfather Walter. Like I don't call my grandfather by his first name. I'd probably get fucking popped in the mouth if I did. Um but then again it's third person, so it's not like inherently in their voice, so I can use his name for some pronoun clarification, I guess. So it's something I'm gonna look at again when I revise this fucking piece of shit. I shouldn't say that. It's not bad. It's coming out decently. It's not quite coming out the way I had anticipated it coming out, but it is coming out and it's coming out decently, and that's all I can ask for. No, what the fuck is that corrected to? Humped. If they hadn't, there we go. I don't know what the fuck Google Docs was thinking right there, but I learned that from my editor. I can't remember if I've established his eye color for the short yet. I'm thinking of. Not gurgle. Gurgle's not a good word to put there. I don't want to use the word looms because it's not big enough to loom, and loom has like a more not tense, but not trepidatious either. Alex, what word are you thinking of? It just gives tenser vibes to say it's looming over, but I want it. I want it. I also like. It's not like direct parallelism, but I do want it to parallel a little bit the first scene where when they see his when they see their grandfather, he waves at them. That was kind of my intention with the last line there. So okay, I probably could have done that on another sprint if I had really wanted to, just to make it a little less boring. But I didn't think I would write that much. So that is. That is gonna be the stream for tonight. I am sorry it was short. But like I said, and as you can probably tell, I am absolutely exhausted. So I'm gonna go get some rest now. I don't know when I'll be streaming again, to be honest. It just kind of depends on what is going on at my husband's work and how I'm feeling and yada yada. But I do hope to be streaming again sometime soon. So thank you for sprinting with me. If you sprinted with me, thanks for checking out my presentation. If you were here for that, a VOD of that presentation, edited to include some like clips from the study streams and whatnot, should be going up. I don't want to promise a time, but I at least need to have a video finished by Sunday. So I would hope to have one by like Wednesday of next week, but I don't know. We'll see. So, in any case, have a wonderful night.